Before we leave the ground to start rock climbing, we have a really well-established culture of double checking each other, double checking our knot, double checking that our belay device is locked. We have less of a culture for doing that when we're rappelling. The descent is where a good majority of rock climbing accidents is caused. So why wouldn't we be just as redundant in double checking each other for the descent as we are before we even leave the ground? So that is a great argument for the pre-rigged rappel. We just rappelled down. Now we're at our next rappel station. We've both anchored in directly to the anchor that we've built, and we're going to start pulling our rope down in order to get our rope back and thread it through the next anchor. So I can pull up one end here, and I can take that knot out so that I can thread it through my rappel rings right here. For the sake of demonstration, we're using the same cord, but usually we'll have added our own anchor to the bolts to clip our tethers into. So I've threaded that, and I can go ahead and tie my knot on that end. Great. Start feeding that through, making sure that it's not causing friction on my slings until I get to the middle. Now I can tie a block here once I get to my middle. Go, and then I'll just continue pulling the other end of the rope through my last anchor that I just rappelled from, and I have the end that will be being pulled through a carabiner here so that the knot at the end of the rope will get caught on this carabiner and I'm reminded to take it out. Cool. There's that knot. Pull this rope. And with gravity, this rope is gonna just fling on past me. So now as it flings past me, down there, now I have one end of the rope with a knot and one end without. And in any other application where I'm not pre-rigging the rappel, I would want to pull that end back up to make sure that there's a knot in both ends. But in the application of pre-rigging, I don't actually have to do that, and I'll show you why. I'm going to pre-rig my rappel. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my backup and attach it to the rope. Cool. Test it, make sure it works. It does. Awesome. And I can rig my rappel. Great. Now I can take my partner's belay device and rig his rappel above mine. Great, so he is rigged in above mine, and I can either attach it directly to his belay loop, or I can go ahead and give him an extension. I'll go ahead, since he does have an easy enough extension here, I'll just attach it into his anchor chain, and now he's rigged. The way this works is that when I start rappelling down, I act as his brake. So he's not actually able to go anywhere once I start descending. The first person down in this pre-rigged scenario does need to have a third hand friction hitch backup, because if something were to happen with me down there, there's no backup for me. There's no one down there giving me a firefighter's belay. If I need to like mess around with the rope to get it unstuck, then I'm easily able to do that because I have this third hand backup and an extended rappel. My partner can, in this scenario, have a backup if he wants to, but it's not necessary because I am going to give him a firefighter's belay when I get down to the bottom. Our devices are blocking the rope so we can untie this knot. He's in a comfortable place there so that when I'm weighting the rope and rappelling in whatever direction I need to go, he won't be getting yanked with the rope. Before I leave the station, I could have Austin disconnect his tether because he's secured here without necessarily needing a tether. There are some applications where I may choose to have him stay tethered into the anchor, and that might be in scenarios where I know the rappel might be traversy, or I might have to do some messing around and weighting and unweighting the rope in order to figure out where the next rappel is, or in order to get to the rappel. But in this scenario, I know it's a straightforward rappel down to the next anchor, so I'll just go ahead and have him unclip that and reattach it back to his belay loop there.
Before I descend, I need to make sure that my partner is committed to holding the rope below his rappel device, because that is a key part of the security of this setup. If he weren't holding the rope and I rappelled past the end of the rope that doesn't have a knot on it, the rope could end up slipping through his device and the anchor.
So he's pre-rigged and so am I, and this way, before we even leave the anchor, we've both double checked each other that we're locked and connected securely, and the system is all safe and ready to go, so that we're limiting the amount of mistakes that could possibly happen. So I'm now ready and I can unattach my personal tether, connect it back into my belay loop, and I will start descending. Take out my walker knot and head on down. When I get down to the next anchor, it's really important for me to tie a knot and clip this directly into the master point of my next anchor, because we need to make sure that the system is closed for my partner. And then I'm going to maintain an attentive firefighter's belay for my partner until he gets down to me. I am his security at this point. In case he does lose control for any reason, I can break his device. Another benefit of the pre-rigged rappel is there actually ends up being less waiting. When we're all rigging up at the same time, we're already ready to go, so all that the next person has to do when they're ready to descend is start descending. So I wouldn't be waiting down there for him to rig his rappel before he descends down to me. If I want my partner to be able to move around freely, what I can do is I can J-rig the rope. So in order to give him more maneuverability and still be secured, I can tie a bight knot on the rope and clip this in directly to my master point. And then I can rig his rappel on this part of the rappel line above that bight knot. And I can either attach it to his extension or directly to his belay loop. In this scenario, we'll give him a little bit extra maneuverability even than what I've already given him. And this way, let's say the first part of the rappel, I might have to be doing some looking around from side to side, and I don't want to yank him around with me. This way he is unaffected by what I'm doing down on the rappel. So before I leave, everything is secured and he's secured. This is his personal anchor now. He can go ahead and unattach his tether and reattach that back to his belay loop here. Cool, and I can clear myself, clean my tether here, and I'm ready to go. I'm now descending, and anything I do is not yanking on him now. And before he goes, all he would have to do is bring that carabiner with him, bring our anchor with him, and untie that knot. He would be able to easily descend right back down to me. Alright, so we've successfully pre-rigged the rappel, and I'm going to demonstrate why we only necessarily need one end of the rope to have a knot in it. In this scenario, I've offset the ropes just to demonstrate, but the knot of my rope is on the other end of the rope, so if they were offset for any reason, and I rappelled off the end of one rope, Austin's belay device in combination with his hand on the rope below his belay device is breaking the rope, preventing it from threading through the anchor. So I'll demonstrate how this works, and this is one of the main benefits of doing the pre-rigged rappel, so that you don't have to pull that second end of the rope back up to make sure that there's a knot in it. So I get to the end of my rope, the end that doesn't have a knot in it, and I can just continue rappelling. And effectively we've turned our single rope rappel into two fixed ropes.